Was taken by the Mitcheson family from Newcastle who were here on holiday out on the loch for an afternoon, just having a look around. And this is what Jeff Mitcheson, the father of the family, saw in the water. Now, people have said maybe it's a seal, maybe it's an otter, but it doesn't actually have the characteristics of either of those two animals. It was, again, a very flat, calm day, and this has perplexed even scientists at Edinburgh University have seen it. They say it could be a seal, could be an otter, but they can't say for definite that it is not something else. Let me bring in the Mitcheson family here, Jeff, young Craig and Miriam. Thanks for coming back. Now, you were in two minds as to whether there was something or wasn't until Saturday afternoon. Yeah. What do you think now?
Well, I'm convinced that there's definitely something there. What it is, I don't know. I've never seen anything like it.
Purely by accident you caught this as well?
Definitely. Yeah, I was just looking in the camera to check that it was where I wanted it, and I just caught it in the corner of my eye, and then I zoomed in on it, as you can see in the footage.
And Miriam, you actually didn't see this because you were talking to the captain of the boat at the time.
That's right. It was swimming behind my back. I didn't turn around. I didn't see it at all.
But you believed in a monster of some kind, did you?
I did believe, yes, I did believe there was something in Loch Ness.
And this has just confirmed your thoughts?
Yes, yes.
And young Craig here. Now, did you get to see them? You saw the monster on your daddy's film, though.
Yeah, I did.
Well, what does it look like to you? Does it look like a big dinosaur thing? Does it look something smaller or what?
Look like its head.
And do you think these things eat people?
No.
Do you think it's a friendly monster?
Yeah.
Now you realise how lucky you are, Jeff, because there's one man who's been camped on the loch side here for 7 years with a video camera, and he's found nothing yet.
Yeah, very lucky. I mean, we weren't even going to come this weekend. Things went one way, one went the other, and we decided eventually to come up at the last minute. And everything just went. I mean, it was timed to the second, really, to be there at that point, because it was gone within 15, 20 seconds.
And what speed do you reckon it was doing through the water?
Not very fast, I would say about 3-4 miles an hour. You know, you could see it. It's the waves coming off it, or the ripples. It looks like the bow of a boat just cruising through.
Now we're showing the pictures again. This is the first time on television these pictures have been seen. Now you haven't faked this at all. I mean, you can look me in the eye and say, you know, you're a motor mechanic, you're not into playing around with digital images on cameras or whatever. This is exactly what you filmed.
I've got better things to do than things like that. Yeah, it was just luck, that's all. Fluke.
Well, listen, thank you both very much indeed. And as I said, the Mitcheson family, very lucky. Many people have tried to get this. And the reason why many sightings are made off here, Fiona, is because not just Castle Urquhart, and it's a great vantage point, but also that is the deepest part of the loch out there. There is a hole on the bed of the loch. It goes down 800 feet out there, and the hole takes it down even more. And that's why some people who believe in the monster here think that that is why it is chosen to basically spend its time here, coming out for some fish, but also being able to channel its way down into the depths where no one, not even television documentary makers, can find it.
It could be lurking down there 800 feet under, or is it? We're about to find out the opinion of someone who normally loves all creatures, great and small. It's Chris Packham. He joins us from our Southampton studio. Morning to you, Chris.
Good morning.
Hi, nice to see you there. Now, you've seen the evidence this morning. You've heard the Mitchesons. They're convinced they have spotted the Loch Ness Monster. Is it a monster myth in your eyes?
Well, you see, the thing is, the myth of the Loch Ness Monster is fantastically romantic, and whatever we say, I don't think that any science will overcome all of that romance. So that's why we're so, keen to present our case. Now, I can state quite categorically that the Loch Ness Monster is not an ancient reptile, and I'll simplify the reasons for that. 10,000 years ago, the loch was a solid block of ice. Anything in there has to have got in since. Ancient reptiles of the type described as being seen in the loch died out 65 million years ago. But far more importantly, there are only between 20 and 40 tons of fish in that loch. So if there were any large fish-eating predator, and there's nothing else to eat in there, it would soon exhaust that supply. Now, I've looked at the Mitcheson's film very kindly. A tape of that was biked down to me last night. And, to me, it is very clearly a seal. Now, I might, I don't want to be rude to the Mitchesons at all, but this is a problem that we've encountered throughout the production of our X Creatures series, and that is that people who aren't used to looking at animals in these sorts of situations, if they see them in the right place, in this case Loch Ness, turn them into the monster. Now,
sorry, Chris, but talking about the right place, what would a seal be doing, a lone seal in the middle of Loch Ness?
well, when I say the right place, what I mean is that had the Mitchesons chosen to go to Coniston Water or Lake Windermere and they seen this, we wouldn't be looking at it here as the Loch Ness Monster this morning. They would have seen something in the water and probably sort of said, well, that's a seal or an otter. Because it's here, there is this sort of facility to turn it into a monster. Remember, Loch Ness is not a closed system. There are two ways in. There's the Caledonian Canal and the River Ness, and from time to time, animals do make it into the loch, large animals such as seals. They're visitors. And it's my belief that these animals, in many different forms, otters, seals, large fish, in the past even porpoises and dolphins, are in fact all Loch Ness monsters. And when they're seen by people who, if you'll forgive the phrase, and I'm not being rude to the Mitchesons, aren't qualified naturalists, they're not used to looking at seals or otters in this situation, they just jump in very innocently to the wrong conclusion.
Chris, you're a heartless man. From 565 AD, people are convinced that monster exists, and you'll be telling us UFOs don't exist next.
Now, look, I'm not a cynic. I'm a scientist, and I am, I'm not a seal expert, but I've spent my time, enough time looking at these sort of animals, and the pattern of behaviour, although it's not very distinct, that I see in that film says seal to me. There's no tail on the surface, which we would expect from an otter, so we only see the head, and the way that it drifts rather slowly like that, it's quite flat on the top, and then it sinks beneath the surface without actually leaping up and diving, is quite characteristic of a seal's movement through the water. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say without question I'll stake my life on the fact that that's a seal, just that, because the footage is not particularly clear. But I would sort of say, look, I'd stake 98% of my life on the fact that that's a seal, and 100% on the fact that I'm afraid it's not the Loch Ness Monster.
Now, you're going to have to go face to face with someone who's not going to like what you've said. It is Gary Campbell. Now, he's from the Loch Ness Monster fan club, and you can see him there on the banks of Loch Ness. Gary, you must be distraught, you must be bereft hearing that.
No, not at all, because unfortunately we actually took things a step further, and yourselves took things a step further than Chris Packham said. I mean, he's already said he's not an expert in seals. We had experts in seals look at it last night, and they say quite clearly that what we've got here, the head of the creature, as it turns round at the end, it slips down backwards, which is uncharacteristic of a seal. He says that it's definitely not the Loch Ness Monster. Chris, in his documentary tonight, I believe, will say that the Loch Ness Monster is a sturgeon. A sturgeon is a fish, and then quite clearly this isn't a fish. I mean, normally in these situations I would give the politician's answer and say, well, it's something like unexplained in Loch Ness, but in this case we really have gone down the route of getting a lot of people to look at it. We had Edinburgh Zoo look at it, and they said that they couldn't confirm one way or the other whether it was a seal, so they're leaving it open. Now that, for qualified scientists to say, is quite amazing, because normally they wouldn't say anything like that unless they had a body to look at, which of course none of us want.
Now, I wonder what Chris thinks about that. Every avenue has been covered, it seems, Chris, by Gary and his mates.
It does. The thing about scientists is that they hate putting their heads on the block, don't they? TV presenters, ex-scientists like myself, we get paid to put our heads on the block, so that's what I'm doing this morning. As I said, I'm only 98% sure that that's a seal, and I have spent a fair amount of time looking at these things. But I would like to say one thing, and I'm sure Gary would like to hear this, that don't let people like myself, and don't let programmes like tonight's, put anyone off sending evidence in, because Gary and ourselves rely on members of the public like the Mitchesons to send these reports in. And unfortunately, in the past, scientists have kind of poo-pooed all of these myths. They've sort of written them off without any explanation. And this, I think, has made the public very reticent to present their information. They're afraid of being laughed at and ridiculed. But I'm not here this morning, hopefully, ridiculing the Mitchesons and their sighting or anything else. And I would very much like to say that if anyone has any sightings of Loch Ness Monster, big cats at large, or any other of these mythological phenomena, don't be afraid of the sort of highbrow scientists in their ivory towers. Yeah. Come to people like myself and to the Loch Ness Monster fan club and present your data, because without it, we'll never ever find out for sure whether these creatures exist.
All right, Chris. Well, 98% you've staked that it is not the Loch Ness Monster. 100% I know you're on BBC One at 7 p.m. tonight with X-Creatures, talking about the so-called Loch Ness Monster. Chris Packham, thanks very much indeed. And Gary Campbell, just very quickly from you, I know you've been torn apart this morning really by that scientist sat down in Southampton. You still firmly believe the monster's there?
Absolutely, and I mean, Chris Packham says he's not staking his life on it. I don't know his qualifications, unfortunately, but I mean, we would qualified people look at it. They say they can't rule out it's anything an unknown species. That's good enough for us. And yes, I'm the same. Please, anyone brings anything forward, the only way that we'll actually ever solve this mystery and get it closer is get things in. I mean, I would actually say that this particular piece of video footage is as good as it gets. I mean, this one makes the heart jump.
All right, Gary, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Well, what a tale, eh?
What a tale.
What a tale.
Didn't see the tail, though.
No, we didn't. You see, that was the odd thing. But then what you saw, it sort of being pulled down and the waves around it, suggesting something was flippering around down there.
I've sailed Loch Ness. Yes.
That was very brave, because you can't swim.
No, but I didn't say I couldn't sail.
No, okay.
Caledonian Canal.
Yeah.
When you come up with a wee boat that chugs 10 miles an hour, whatever it is. But the water is so black, and it's got a real presence, Loch Ness. If you haven't visited it, put it on your list.
Never
Very
been.
worthwhile seeing. As is Chris Packham's series, X Creatures. Good watch tonight, 7 o'clock. Right, still to come.